thing with fear is that it never goes away. Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
Auschwitz is arguably one of the most tragic sites in the entire world. It was the largest of many German Nazi concentration camp and extermination center in World War II. Over 1.1 million men, women, and children, mostly Jews, lost their lives here. The collective genocide of World War II, known as the Holocaust, is one of the most horrific events in human history. The Auschwitz-Birkenau Memorial and Museum is now a site where visitors can learn more about how the events unfolded, living conditions, defenses that were set up to prevent the captives from escaping and more. Auschwitz is more than just a popular attraction in Poland. It is a place where visitors can understand human nature. Auschwitz is the standing testimony of the terror that humans can do to each other. It warns out what happens when an ethnic group is dehumanized. A visit to Auschwitz is solemn and eye-opening. The Prague Jewish Cemetery is no ordinary cemetery. There are no large monuments adorning the tombstones, no gardens with flowers cared with care unlike other famous cemeteries in European capitals. Its peculiarity lies in the fact that it is the most overcrowded cemetery in Europe and probably in the world. For over 300 years it was the only place in Prague where Jews could bury their dead. It was established in the middle of the 15th century in Josefov, the Jewish quarter of Prague, and during all those years some 100,000 people were buried there. In a relatively small area this seems impossible, but there is an explanation, which you can learn about by taking a tour of Prague's Jewish quarter accompanied by a professional local guide. Of all the memorial sites and museums in Warsaw, the one that stayed with me the most was the former Szucha Gestapo prison. Today it is also called the Mausoleum of Struggle and Martyrdom. When the building was opened after World War II, 5,578.5 kilograms, 12,298 lb, of ashes were discovered. This was all that remained of the victims of the mass executions carried out by the Nazis within the prison and surrounding neighborhood. As you enter the museum, you are confronted by the faces of the victims projected across a screen. After a short video, they recount the terrors of the Szucha prison, and you can walk through the building, which was kept as it was found, minus, of course, the ashes, which were buried in a local cemetery. The whole museum felt very claustrophobic. You can see torture instruments and the silhouettes of officers' feet pacing back and forth just above your head. At the end of a long hall is a video of a prisoner being struck down, only to repeatedly get up again. It is simultaneously inspiring and devastating. I believe the Mausoleum of Struggle and Martyrdom is an incredibly important place to visit. Whether you consider yourself a dark tourist or not, this museum tells a powerful story that we should never forget. The Chung Ek was transformed into a memorial site and tourist attraction in a bid to remember and educate both locals and tourists on the historical massacre. There's also talk of a tree that is over 100 years old, a tree that witnessed every bit of inhuman torture that the victims faced. It's definitely an emotional walk down a very dark lane, so please do try to be respectful. Try not to take pictures with the skulls, dress appropriately, and don't smoke, drink, or eat while touring the site. This genocide park, poking out from the ground, you can see is yet uncollected evidence of the horrors. Teeth, bits of cloth from shirts, kids' shoes, bits of smashed bone from broken bodies, and more. This ancient Roman city was wiped out when nearby Mount Vesuvius erupted in 79 AD. Historians estimate that about 2,000 people died in the disaster. The thick layer of ash and pumice that covered the city preserved this little slice of ancient Rome. At the ruins, you can see beautifully preserved artwork, pottery, casts of people who died, houses, an amphitheater, and more. Pompeii is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and is one of Italy's most popular tourist destinations with over 2.5 million visitors per year. Some people question whether or not Pompeii is actually a dark tourism site due to the age of the site. After all, the eruption occurred nearly 2,000 years ago. In my opinion, Pompeii is absolutely a dark tourism site due to the large-scale death and destruction that happened here. The age of the site is irrelevant. Zanzibar is a beautiful tropical island found off the coast of Zanzibar. Tourists flock to the white sand beaches to enjoy a little slice of paradise. However, there is a dark history to this paradise island. In the 1800s, Stone Town was a prime location for the Arab slave trade. Slaves were shipped to Stone Town from the mainland and then held in tiny cellars for days without food or toilets, and with little air. It's thought up to 50,000 slaves were sold from Zanzibar. Built over the remains of this slave market now stands the Anglican Cathedral, an unapologetic memorial monument and an informative museum. One of the 15 small cellars still remains and is accessible from the museum. A grim reminder of the inhumane conditions that occurred here. While there are many landmarks to see in Potosi, a unique attraction is to visit one of these working mines. A guided tour lets you witness the working conditions of the miners. If you live in Bolivia, you would come across many extreme tourist offerings, but this one would probably be one of the darkest. The Cerro Rico Mountain silver mines made Potosi a major economic center of the Spanish Empire back in the colonial times. Mining is more or less still done in 18th century style, using old tools, hand and dynamite. No modern safety equipment or protocols. Although you would be introduced to El Diablo, the mountain's devil god to who the miners offer cigarettes, liquor as well as blood of an animal slaughtered on the spot for their protection. Child labor is pretty common and you can buy dynamite in the local market. You will be advised to chew on coca leaves to help with breathlessness if taking a tour through the mines. The miners work in really harsh and dangerous conditions and many get lung diseases afterwards. If you visit, definitely leave a generous tip for the miners.